Let's talk about Henchmen and Hirelings in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. This classic idea of assembling a party and going into the dungeon. Now, given the focus of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons on tactical combat, on lethal combat, a lot more dangerous. Combat is extremely dangerous, but you're expected to navigate it. We can see the wargaming influence on Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that has kind of been made much easier over time into the current edition of D&D. So what this means within the framework of AD&D, I don't ever want to say there's an assumption, but there's an assumption you're going to have hirelings. You're going into the dungeon with some retainers. We see this idea in gold that you gain. One of the biggest differences in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is treasure seems to come a little bit easier. If you look at some of the older modules, especially the convention and competitive play modules, what you see is kind of they're handing treasure out everywhere. Well, one, I want those magic items, but two, the economy of D&D is a lot more expensive, not only in terms of magic items. Look at the Dungeon Master's Guide and some of these wondrous items, extremely expensive, almost to the point where it's like, I remember one time my wizard found a manual of golems. I think it was a stone golem. It's like 180,000 gold pieces. It was like more money than I've ever seen in any role-playing game. And it was just there in the adventure. So now I had to make a hard decision, like just be total boss and have this golem following me around. They're huge in AD&D, very expensive, very rare, very time-consuming. So to have the ability to have one, that's big. Or sell this, even for half. Sell this and just be rolling in the gold to fund some of my higher-level spells. Because in AD&D, just on a side note, I've pushed up to the AD&D channel playlist here, leveling up, right? Modern D&D, you're like in the middle of a dungeon, you hit something and your experience goes to the next level and you're like, automatically you level up. Here we go, right? Just level up. Or maybe you go back to the castle and you rest and you level up. AD&D, you hit that level, you stop gaining experience. You need to train. You need to spend gold and time to train. So from that perspective, also, as you level up as a magic user or an illusionist, you need to buy your spells. They are very rare and very pricey. So I was forced with this dilemma of keep this manual and be boss or sell it for the gold. What did I do? I kept it because it was just such a rare find. Tactically, I probably would have been better off selling it. And my level 6 and 7 and 8 spells later on in the game were a little bit, I didn't have as potent because I didn't have the gold. But anyway, jumping into henchmen and retainers, the economy of AD&D assumes that you're going to be spending cash on hirelings. You need them in that dungeon. What you see is combat is very lethal, very effective, and having a few extra warriors, having a few extra men-at-arms, having a few extra fighters goes a long, long way, a massive way. But here's something else that I want to, I kind of want to explore. There are different retainers in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Sages, mages, artisans, craftsmen, to have certain retainers on command or to hire them, that's also very interesting and opens up levels of research and opens up opportunity literally parallel while you're adventuring. We're going into the dungeon, but I've got my base back here doing this, doing something, right? Taking care of that. Don't overlook those retainers. Now, the challenge of retainers, of course, is they're going to get a cut of the experience. Okay, but they're contributing to that. And you're going to have to pay them gold and upkeep. Okay, but more fighters, more bodies. I won't say 1 to 2 retainers per character class, but having in a party of maybe 4 or 5 players, having 2 or 3, or I'd say around 2 or 3, is a good number and an affordable number that is going to bolster your party size. Because what we see, without any spoilers, again, in a lot of the really classic D&D modules, the monsters outnumber the players in most encounters. And even if you can funnel them in and tactically block them off and engage, let's say 1-to-1, right? Let's say I'm in a stone corridor, 5x5. You're right next to me. I'm the fighter. I don't know, what character class are you? Barbarian, right? Because we're shoulder to shoulder. Or maybe a paladin, shield to shield, right? If we're going down the hallway like that and we engage, let's say 6 orcs and only 2 orcs can come at a time. Yes, we're engaging 1-to-1. Let's put like spells aside, put missile weapons aside, just push that aside for a moment. We still have to chew through those 6 orcs unless they fail morale and run. Let's say that doesn't happen. What this means is while we're engaging 1-to-1, there is a chance that as we chew through those combats, they roll well, right? You see this in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and true in any role-playing game, ROLL, that utilizes dice. I can be surrounded by monsters and have a high or a low armor class, depending on the system. In this case, it's THACO. And just look, the DM is rolling 10 attacks. 1 or 2 of those are going to be 18, 19, or 20 and hit me. So generally what we see is when we're up against numbers, even if they're manageable, I want to thin those numbers. I want to get those numbers down as fast as possible, aka sleep spell, because just the ability to roll dice in D&D, any edition, AD&D, regular D&D, D&D 1 for everyone, somebody's going to get lucky somewhere and punk me. So the sooner I can end combat, the better. And one of the ways to do this, of course, potentially summons. We're going to cover summons in AD&D, but henchmen. They're a critical point in the game. And if you really look through the rules, it's just kind of assumed, it's intended, it's understood that you're going to have followers and you're going to utilize them in combat, almost treating them like a sub character class or a secondary character class that you're going to play.